was my first ever trip to New Zealand, and it really did not take long before I became awed by the beauty of this country. Throughout history, no doubt many visitors upon arrival would have been as amazed as I was by this picturesque landscape. A first impression was captured in a journal entry in 1842. Mary Ann Martin, a migrant coming from England, had written, "The tall leaves of the flax glistened in the sunlight. To a Londoner born and bred, this home seems like a fairyland. The clear air seems to quiver and sparkle with light." Pacific seafarers expedited to this evergreen land long before the colonial disturbance. Before Europeans, the first people to arrive, more than 1,000 years ago, used the sun, stars, and the cycles of nature to find their way, following migrating birds from out in the Pacific Islands, leading them to what then became known as Aotearoa. Ancient voyage stories continue to be told today by the Maori people, who adorn all things of the sea, as they consider their ancestors are of the sea. The flax, as described in Mary's journal entry, grows wild in Aotearoa and contributes to the look of New Zealand's unique scenery. Flax was the European name given to the harikiki plant that has been traditionally used by the Maori people for weaving and for medicine for centuries. As like the stems of the harikiki, the Maori culture stands stronger together, grounded deeply by their spiritual connection to the pulsating ground, the moving seas, the white clouds above, and the greenery that surrounds them. Togetherness has forever been their strength, especially during times and in need of being active warriors. Whānau in Maori language means family. The Maori people have long depicted their family unit in the harikiki plant. It's the new inner shoots that are the children protected by the maotua, the parents. The outside leaves represent the kaumotua, the grandparents, and the tupuna, the ancestors. It is custom when collecting the leaves for weaving and medicine that only the outside leaves are allowed to be harvested to give opportunity for the young inner shoots to grow up big and strong. Here we are at Rotorua. I am meeting Anna, who I met off Instagram, and we are going to be doing some weaving with some flax. I'd planned to take a traditional harakiki weaving class in Rotorua with Anna Hayes, who is a contemporary Māori weaver at the Rotorua Art Village. Weaving harakiki in Māori language is called raranga. With Anna's inherent connection for weaving with a harakiki, she said it was important for us to say a prayer. It was a karakai. It was to cleanse our mind, our body, and our spirit, so we could bring pure universal energy into our task of weaving. With Anna's instructions, I was soon on my own little creative mission of bending, folding, tucking, and moulding the long thin leaves into a shape. It was while I was in my mini weaving trance that my mind wandered and led me to think that this was an age-old practical maths class that I was undertaking. This ancient craft has a mathematical sequence where counting is impediment to the design. Weaving harakiki is where functional mathematics and art come together in sequence. In that moment, I felt then the cultural importance of what weaving the harakiki was to the Māori people. Just as I received my insight sitting out under that tree, Anna informed me it is custom that your first ever oranga you make, you must gift it away. During my time in New Zealand, I wanted to immerse myself into as many arts as possible. That evening, I took a taxi out of town to stay with a textile artist named Laurie. Laurie runs workshops in felting using the best of New Zealand's merino wool. She runs the workshops from her brightly coloured batch at the top of a hill overlooking this beautiful picturesque green lake. After a great night's rest in her Airbnb, I woke the next morning to spend the whole day in her light-filled space learning to felt. Her workshop ran for 6 hours, and at the end I made a custom-fitted pair of slippers that I got to take home. I also gifted her my raranga. A few days later, I took a flight to Wellington at the bottom of the North Island, then a train up the Kapiti coast where at the end of the line I was greeted by a very bright and bubbly artist named Bridget, who came to pick me up for an eco-dye workshop. On the way to her studio, We stopped to forage for native New Zealand dye plants. It had only been the day before I had seen her designs in the famous National Te Papa Museum gift store. My main objective from my trip to New Zealand was to work with native New Zealand dye plants. I was already impressed by Bridget's artistic flair. Now with her vast knowledge of native species, I knew I had found the right lady to learn from. It was such an inspiring day in Bridget's light-filled studio, listening to the roar of the cicadas outside, surrounded by green rolling hills. If you are in or headed to New Zealand's North Island, then consider taking in an art experience. What better way to immerse yourself in by creating art with New Zealand's natural elements? And by being able to take this unique memory home with you.